Hello, everyone. Good to see you. It's Good Friday, 2024. I hope you're doing well. This week we are looking at Quakers in Barbados. This is our course REL 3066 on Christianity in the Caribbean. It could be subtitled Christianity, Race, and Slavery in the Caribbean. The long, slow process of emancipation. And this involved the gradual changing of Christian views about slavery. So today we're talking about Quakers in Barbados, which are the first sectarian group we're going to be speaking about. And let me jump into some photos. Okay, my mouse is not working, so I'll do it this way. Christianity in the Caribbean, Spring B 2024. We'll be teaching this again next year. If you didn't get it this time around and you'd like to take it, it does count towards our certificate in Christian Studies. So here's a picture of Barbados, Spanish rendering of a map of Barbados in 1630, I believe it was, or maybe a little bit earlier. I kind of like this rendering. And here's a picture of Barbados in where it's located in relation to the rest of the Caribbean. As you see, the Caribbean starts northwest with the Antilles, the Greater Antilles, which includes Cuba, Hispaniola, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. And then the Lesser Antilles are the smaller islands that sprinkle down like a curved spine towards Venezuela. But way out in the Atlantic is a outlier called Barbados. And so it's kind of an unusual island. It was discovered, I believe, in around 1640 by the Portuguese, 1630 by the Portuguese. It was called Os Barbados, which is Portuguese for the bearded ones. And that's because the island is full of trees that look like they're bearded, with moss hanging down. And so that's how it got its name, Barbados. Here's another map from 1750 of the island of Barbados. It's kind of low-lying. It's not mountainous. It's a bit unusual in its topography. We'll talk about that later. So, the founding of Barbados. I mentioned the Portuguese founded. I said 1630, but it looks like immediately after the English claimed the island in 1625. So maybe the Portuguese found it a little bit earlier. I'll have to double check the date of the discovery of the island. But in any case, the English claimed it, and it became their first foothold in the Caribbean. If you remember, the Jamestown and Plymouth, the Plymouth colony were not started until the 1600s. So this is around the same time that the English were founding colonies along the coast of North America. In the early years, laborers are mostly indentured servants who contractually worked for 5 years and then were supposed to be given a small plot of land and $5. The treatment of slaves and indentured servants was roughly similar, except for the fact that there was a limited term of time. Irish were often indentured servants or slaves. Irish were Catholic, which was meaningful for the Anglicans, who did not consider the Catholics to be Christians. And eventually, Barbados became a sugar producer and rum. Before this time, in the late 1500s, the primary sugar producer was northeastern Brazil. And the Dutch actually took over northeastern Brazil for about 60 years and ran the sugar production from there. But eventually the indigenous Brazilians and Portuguese ran the Dutch out, and so they went on to develop colonies in the ABC Islands of Bonaire and Curaçao. but they also arrived on Barbados as traders and became the primary traders and suppliers for the British or the English colonists who were living there. They brought slaves, and they introduced to the English the technology for producing sugar, raising sugar cane and producing sugar and rum, which then brought fabulous wealth to Barbados, which this was after 1640. It was primarily a colony settlement. I'm trying to remember the name of the Jamaican historian who did a study on colony settlements versus exploitation settlements, and his name escapes me at the moment. But colony settlements were more of had less slavery and were more focused on reproducing the home society, whereas an exploitation colony made no attempt to reproduce the home society and instead had a very imbalanced social structure with a small number of white people normally oppressing and coercing a large number of people of color to work for them. And so this was Barbados. After 1660, Barbados became a full-fledged exploitation colony, dependent upon slavery and sugar production. Catherine Gerbner points out in her book on Christian slavery, after 1660 was a gradual process of rethinking coerced labor in terms of color and race. White supremacy and African slavery gradually took root and became dominant in the 18th century. Barbados replaced Dutch Brazil as the world's #1 supplier of sugar. And this is a picture of George Fox, one of the founders of the Society of Friends, otherwise known as the Quakers, which arose during the English Civil War. He was an English preacher and founder of the society. He was from a Puritan background and reacted to church formalism. He emphasized radical equality and importance of the inner light, or a God-given inspiration. One might say intuition in our modern parlance, over scriptural authority or creeds. The Quakers came into being in the last, okay, I got to move this to be able to see, last years of the British Commonwealth, which was 1649 through 1660, during the rule of Oliver Cromwell. We'll have more to say about Oliver Cromwell. They offended religious leaders both religiously and politically by their severe criticism and their refusal to honor officials or take oaths or pay tithes. Fox and his associates were often arrested and imprisoned. Fox was imprisoned 8 times between 1649 and 73. Okay, so Fox made his first missionary trip to Ireland. He also visited colonies in the Caribbean, strengthening existing Quaker communities. He also especially visited Maryland and Rhode Island. The state of Pennsylvania was established in 1682 under the leadership of William Penn, who was converted to Quakerism in order to provide a safe place for Quakers to live and practice their faith. This is William Penn, an English writer, religious thinker, and influential Quaker, founded Pennsylvania during the British colonial era in 1682. Quakers were social disruptors. That's a popular term since the rise of the tech industry, the idea of social disruption or technological disruption. They refused to bear arms, they refused to take oaths, they refused to pay church dues, and they interrupted Anglican services. They also refused to take off their hat in the presence of nobility, aristocracy, or even the king. The persecutions of these years was intense. About 1,000 friends were imprisoned by 1657. This hardened Fox's opinions of traditional religious and social practices. In his preachings, he often emphasized the Quaker rejection of baptism by water. This was a useful way of highlighting how the focus of Friends was on inward transformation rather than outward sacraments or ritual. This also hindered the Quakers in their attempts to convert their African slaves to Christianity. Later, the Moravians came along who did do baptisms and were much more successful because the slaves were interested in the rituals of Christianity. So in the 1650s, when the Friends were at their most confrontational, that was one of the most creative periods of their history. Under the Commonwealth, Fox had hoped that the movement would become a major church in England. This could lead us back into our discussion about the difference between church structures and sectarian movements. Sectarian movements being much more aimed at reform and at a higher level of tension with surrounding society. Disagreements, persecution, and increasing social turmoil led Fox to suffer from severe depression, which left him deeply troubled. It happens. Many women were involved in the early Quaker leadership and mission activity. Society of Friends tended to be egalitarian in gender, particularly. Friends believed in the spiritual quality of women and were allowed to take a far more active role than had been ordinarily exercised before the emergence of the radical Civil War sects or sectarian groups. These sectarian groups began with the Quakers, but later included Baptists, Methodists coming out of England and Great Britain. The Moravians technically were not a dissenting church because they were a sectarian movement, but they were from Germany. So in that sense, they can't be said to be an English dissenting church. The preachers of the 1650s to 1670s were Margaret Fell, Dorothy White, Hester Biddle, Sarah Blackborough, Rebecca Travers, and Alice Kerwin. Here's a picture of an assembly of Quakers in London. So in 1671, George Fox traveled to Barbados for a visit and spent time with the governor of Barbados as well as the prominent Quakers on the island. Quakers tended to be affluent. They were hard-working and they lived frugally, and so that tended eventually to affluence. He wrote a gospel tract or a essay called The Gospel Family Order, being a short discourse concerning the ordering of families of both whites, blacks, and Indians. It was a short discourse, but it was not a short title, as you can see. He was concerned that slave promiscuity might corrupt Quaker families. He told Quakers to teach Christian morals to their slaves. His concern was for family order, not so much slave emancipation. And his tacit acceptance of slavery has traditionally been interpreted within the context of Quaker anti-slavery thought. Later, about 100 years later, in Pennsylvania and other parts of North America, the Quakers became passionately abolitionist and opposed slavery. But this was 100 years later. At this point in time, many Quakers were slave owners. Some have interpreted his sermon as proto-abolitionist. However, there's a different point of view, suggesting that the limits on slave service was a half step toward abolition. The author takes a different point of view and believes that his sermon was a step towards an ideology of Christian slavery. That is, a Christian justification of slavery that made it more acceptable for slave owners who were Christians. Fox's efforts, when I say the author, I'm talking about Catherine Gerbner in her book, Christian Slavery. So Fox's efforts to reconcile slavery with Christian practice defied and undermined the ideology of Protestant supremacy. What is the ideology of Protestant supremacy? It's the idea that Protestants were superior to Catholics. Catholics were not really true Christians. There was a kind of disdain towards the Catholic practice of baptizing large numbers of Africans, sometimes as they were taken on the boat to be transported to the New World. They didn't get much instruction. It was kind of a ritual pro forma, so the Protestants questioned how real that conversion could possibly be. And Protestants at this point in time were also very virulently anti-Catholic. Anyway, the wars of religion were going on. The war of the religion took place on the waters of the Caribbean in the form of piracy. Catholics were viewed as the Antichrist, and the Pope was the Antichrist, and Catholics, or the Vatican, was the Great Babylon. So there was no love lost there. The Protestant supremacy basically believed that Protestants didn't need to preach to their African slaves. They didn't need to introduce them to Christianity. There was a fear of uncertainty that if slaves were introduced to Christianity, the Protestant slave owners would be forced to release them from bondage and service. And so the Protestants took a much dimmer view of conversion of slaves than did the Catholics. That's the ideology of Protestant supremacy. In fact, they did everything in their power, for the most part, to prevent slaves from becoming Christians or becoming literate. So Fox's pro-conversion stance forced Protestants to consider how slavery could be reconciled with Christian living. Here's a map of Barbados. 1675, there was a slave rebellion on Barbados 4 years after Fox's visit. Up until this time, Quakers had pretty much gotten along with the Church of England and the Church of England slave owners and the governor of Barbados, appointed by the king. But after this slave rebellion, the Barbados elite responded by passing legislation preventing Quaker evangelization. In 1676, it became illegal for Quakers to include blacks in their meetings. Quakers were blamed for the rebellion. They gave hope and empowerment to the slaves by letting them become Christians, and that was blamed. They were blamed. The Quakers were then blamed for the slave empowerment and their rebellion. The Council of Barbados linked the slave rebellion to religious conversion. First time any Protestant group in the West Indies had been persecuted for missionary activity. The first female Quaker missionaries visited in 1655. We're backing up a little bit. The largest concentration of Quakers outside of England was in Barbados. 50 years later, there were numerous Quakers living in Pennsylvania and Maryland, but at this point, Barbados was the primary community of Quakers outside of England. Anne Austin and Mary Fisher were the first Quaker missionaries to the West Indies. Quakers emerged, I've already said, they emerged out of the disruptions of the English Civil War, the collapse of the monarchy, the beheading of King Charles, and the expectations of the imminent return of Christ, millennialism. In 1655, Barbados was in the midst of a major economic and sugar revolution. Transformation of the demography and the economy of the small island proceeded from the need for extensive slave labor in order to pursue the sugar industry. The labor force included both enslaved people and indentured servants in 1655. This was going to change within the next 20 years from a primary focus on race or color-based slavery, as opposed to a combination of slavery and indentured servants. We've already talked about how the word slave comes from Slav. In the Roman Empire and in traditional slavery, there was no color component to slavery. White people could be slaves as easily as people of color. And Catholics, Irish Catholics, for example, could certainly be enslaved by English Protestants. By 1680, 80% of the Quakers on Barbados owned at least one slave. It was due to George Fox's influence that at least some friends took steps to share the gospel, the Christian gospel, with their slaves. It was Fox who had the first meeting with blacks on the island in 1671. Friends made no active effort. Oh, here's my cat. He's going to help me. This is Smoke. Hey, Smoke, you want to say hi to the nice students out there over here? Huh? Okay, he's not good. He just wants me to let him sit in his lap. He's not interested in saying hi. Fox had the first meeting with blacks. The Friends made no active effort to convert their slaves to Christianity prior to Fox's visit. The Friends continued to meet with blacks after Fox's departure. So you see there was a mixed message here. On one hand, they were trying to treat slaves humanely as part of the family and to treat them with some human dignity and some equality, but on the other hand, they were making large profits out of the ownership of these slaves and were unwilling to pursue their emancipation or abolition of slavery. We have to look at these things in the context of the time, and one of the reasons why I'm not making a justification here, but George Fox and then later the Moravians, including Count Zinzendorf, who visited St. Thomas, one reason why they tread easy on the issue of abolition was because they knew that if they went too far in advocating abolition or too much equality with slaves, that they would be marginalized and hounded and persecuted, as later happened with the Moravians, who were imprisoned over these issues of treating slaves with some degree of equality and dignity. If they pushed too far, they would be expelled from the island or imprisoned and persecuted. So, it's easy to be critical from the distance of several hundred years, but we have to understand the days in which they lived. God's mighty power magnified, as manifested and revealed in his faithful handmaid. This is a letter written by Joan Watkins, or an essay in 1681. I met with many friends in Bridgetown. Most days I had 2 or 3 meetings a day, both among blacks and also among the white people, and the power of the Lord of Jesus was mightily manifested, so that my soul was often melted therewith, even in the meetings of the Negroes or the blacks, as well as among the Friends. This is quoted from Gerbner, page 78. There were some points of similarity between Quakerism and West African spirituality. This might have helped them build bridges with their slaves, religious bridges. One of them was the centrality of dreams' importance for the Quakers, as well as the African slaves who had experienced West African religion. Quaker denunciation of the plantation culture appealed to slaves. The Quaker commitment to egalitarianism, and enslaved men and women could take an interest in Quaker practice for both religious and social reasons. But some barriers to conversion. Slaves were attracted to sacramental rites and ritual, which the Quakers did not practice. They didn't practice baptism or the table of the Lord, the communion, and that would have attracted slaves, but the Quakers didn't offer that. There was a high demand among slaves for baptism with the Moravians. Quakers did not teach their slaves to read and write, as did the Moravians and later Anglican missionaries. Quakers did not provide leadership roles for the enslaved, as did the Moravians. The Moravians were not hesitant about promoting women or slaves or mulattoes, mixed blood peoples, into primary roles of leadership. They took that a step further than did the Quakers. I'm not going to talk about the Ashanti slave rebellion of 1672, but this brought down some suspicion on the Quakers and some persecution. Quakers, as a result of all these things, this backlash in the Council of Barbados, they failed to convince slave owners that they should convert their slaves. And by 1680, a strong anti-conversion opinion had been established in Barbados. They didn't want their slaves to be Christians. While Quakers led the campaign to convert slaves to Christianity after 1670s in North America, their influence on the island of Barbados faded in the 1680s and 1690s, as did their commentary about slave conversion. The Quaker community began a long period of decline during the last two 2 decades of the 17th century. In the early 1680s, the Quaker community was torn apart by internal disagreements, and many Barbadian Quakers migrated to Pennsylvania. It was after the turn of the century, actually beginning in 1688, Quakers in Germantown, Pennsylvania, began an anti-slavery protest in North America. Slaves were pacifists in their beliefs, and slavery was inherently violent. And so this was an internal conflict or a cognitive dissonance for Quakers who were owning slaves. How could they be pacifists and endorse the violence of slavery? Even humane slavery included some type of coercion or violence. A small but influential population of Christian slaves and free black Christians ushered in challenges to Protestant slavery, according to Gerbner on page 96. So in summary, Quakers were a transitional sectarian group, one step away from the Church of England and other imperial churches. I think I've talked elsewhere about the Spanish Catholics were a church of empire. The Dutch Reformed Church was the church of an emerging Dutch empire competing with England. The Church of England also was a state church of the emerging British Empire. Radical Quaker beliefs about equality and pacifism or nonviolence and the inner light in each human being led them to treat their slaves as valued members of their families and welcome to the faith. Quaker discourse disrupted and made the Anglican Church uncomfortable with its own internal contradictions regarding slavery. And that is all for today. A beautiful Good Friday. I will see you later on today in class or Monday next week. Have a blessed weekend, and we'll continue soon. Thank you.